Hi, welcome to Darla Reads Barefooted. I'm going to do a tag. It's called the Mid-Year Freakout tag, book tag. And I normally don't do these, but I'm a major bookworm. I have been my whole life, so 60 plus years. And I've been watching a lot of BookTube and decided that this would just be a really fun introductory video to make if I should decide to go forward with doing more booktubes. So, welcome. And this is my journal that I use for logging. I talk with my books, I talk with my authors, I write my reflections about them. This is a relatively new journal, but it's one I'm having a lot of fun with. And I started out only doing nonfiction in here. And then I realized that I read so much fiction that I would include fiction. So the book tag, though, that we are doing, again, this is the Mid-Year Freakout book tag. And I'm doing this because I was inspired by Storm Reads. Shout out to Storm Reads. Hi. And so I'm just going to go through the books here. So the number one is best book you've read so far in 2026. I'm going to go with Douglas Preston's The Codex. I got hooked on the Preston and Child books maybe 3 years ago, and I've read every single thing that they've published, except I hadn't read the standalones done by each of the authors on their own. So I decided to get Douglas Preston's The Codex. Now, I'm a huge fan of adventure stories and Raiders of the Lost Ark, anything that's adventure. And this, I couldn't put it down. It just led me start to finish. It was a pure action adventure with some mystery and some family. It's three brothers who go to seek their father and a hidden treasure, and it's wonderful. It's just absolutely so much fun. So I'm going to claim that as the best book I've read, not because I read so many books. It's not like you can't have like dozens and dozens of best or favorite books, but for pure fun and a very fast read, I'm gonna select The Codex. So that's this one. The second prompt is best sequel you've read so far in 2026. I'm gonna go with Tombstone Courage. This is another author new to me, and I have no idea how I have not read her over the years. But when I started reading this series, which is the Joanna Brady series, takes place in Bisbee, Arizona. Well, we lived in Tucson for 4 years, and I traveled and stayed at Bisbee numerous times. I love the little town. It's absolutely delightful. So when I finally started reading this series and realized that it was set in Bisbee, I just couldn't get enough of it. So I loved the sequel, Tombstone Courage, and I'm currently in the process of reading the whole series. So that's a lot of fun. The next prompt is new release you haven't read yet but want to. I'm going to have to go with, I rarely, if ever, read new releases unless they're by authors that I already know or they were already writing prior to the year 2000. I like the old writing styles, and so that's kind of a guideline. But a lot of booktubers were talking about Joe Hill's King Sorrow. And so I decided to, when it came up, it was like 99 cents or $1.99 on my Kindle. And I just decided to go ahead and get it downloaded, and I'll read it at some point. I don't know how long it'll take me to get to it because there's so much else that I'm reading that I'm having so much fun with. But anyway, that would be the new release I haven't read yet. The prompt number 4, sorry about the shaking. Prompt number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I would have to say again, based upon what I said earlier, it's probably going to be Jance's last or latest Joanna Brady novel, which is coming out at the end of the year. So I'm kind of hoping to get through all of these. I'm like half a dozen in, maybe 10 in, and I really would like to get the rest read so that by the time that one is released, I'll be able to just read it. So that's kind of a loose goal. I'm a mood reader, but that's probably the most anticipated release for me. Biggest disappointment this year in my books was Deborah Crombie's A Share in Death. This was highly recommended by a couple of booktubers that I like, and I thought for sure I would really enjoy it, but it was kind of a slog. Now, it is the first in the series, and I know sometimes they take a little while to take off. So I'm hoping maybe that I got the first 3. So I'm hoping maybe the second one will be better than the first. But I was disappointed in this first one. It was just kind of slow and sluggish and just didn't really grab me. It took me a while to get through it. So that was kind of a disappointment. My biggest surprise was Sue Grafton's Alphabet Mystery Series. And the reason this was a surprise is because a couple decades ago, when it was coming out, I tried reading it, and it held no interest whatsoever. And so it's just been sitting on my shelf. And then I came across in a thrift store, I could get like 12 or 13 of them, and the paperbacks were like 50 cents each. So I snatched them up and I said, well, I'm just going to give them a try. For that price, how could I go wrong? I started reading them. I fell head over heels in love with the series. So I'm already 4 or 5 in and can't wait to read the rest. I scrambled around and went to enough thrift stores and flea markets, and I found the rest. So I have the whole series, and this huge surprise. They're just loads and loads of fun. So that would be biggest surprise, prompt number 6. Favorite new author, prompt number 7, or new to me. That would have to be Jance and Grafton both, since they're both new to me this year, and they're both my favorites. So that was an easy one. Newest fictional crush, which is prompt 8. I don't have one. I have no idea what that even means. Number 9 is newest favorite character. That would be Kinsey Milhone in the Sue Grafton series. I think she's fantastic. She's bold and brash and tough and independent, and I think she's an amazing character. I really, really, really like her. So that's my newest favorite character. Book that made me cry this year, that would be Rosamund Pilcher's The Shell Seekers. I don't know of anyone how could you not cry reading this book? But I also have no idea how I haven't read her before. This was my first reading of her, of any of her work. And she's so well known. There was a movie made. I think there's actually been 2 movies made of The Shell Seekers. I probably have seen them, but for whatever reason, I hadn't read the books. I finally have read the big ones, the thick versions, the tomes that she wrote at the end of her life, and I really enjoy them. This one made me cry, and I think part of it is just, the protagonist is an older character and an older woman, and maybe it's my age because, hello, mid-60s here, but look at this paragraph. This is such a beautiful paragraph. The writing is exquisite, and it really drew me in, and I was crying all the way through it. There were many times that I cried in this book. So I love this one, but that's the one that made me cry. Book that made me happy. I'm gonna put 2. The first one is a reread for me. I've been reading these since they first came out decades ago. A New Leash on Death by Susan Conant. Part of the reason these make me happy is I spent 15 years showing dogs, training dogs in my 20s and 30s, and this is the Dog Lovers Mystery Series. This is AKC showing and training. I mean, it's like this was my world for 15 years. So to get back into that world has just been an absolute delight. So those are books that I'm working through, and they just make me happy. I sit down, I read one, and I am just happy as a clam. The other one that made me really happy was back in March. I came across in a thrift shop half a dozen copies of the Doc Savage series in this glorious vintage paperback. They're in great condition. And again, this is pure adventure, but for me, part of the reason they make me so happy is because when I was in my early teens, my dad and my brother, my older brother, were reading these. And I would sneak them off their shelves and read them. And I think that's why I'm such an eclectic reader. I read across all genres. And I think part of it is because I was reading my dad and my brother's books, as well as the romances that were more common to my girlfriends. And of course, I read Nancy Drew and all of that in school. So I've just read a little bit of everything. And when I read this, it takes me back to those early teenage years, and it just takes me back. And I just absolutely love the nostalgia. And I feel like my dad's with me. He died in 2008. And when I read these books, I really feel like he's present. The most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received, I have to say, it's not so much what other people might call those folio books or the really pretty ones. I have been having so much fun with all of these vintage covers. I've gotten into thrifting, and being able to find these vintage covers, these vintage books, and they're so pretty. They're so pretty. They were so artistic. In fact, I have a little project I'm going to be working on of my favorite covers, and I'll tell you more about that later maybe. But these would be the prettiest. Let's see if I can get the glare off of there. I just think the artwork is so pretty. So all of these vintage covers, whether they're a hardcover or the vintage paperbacks, I love the art. To me, they're beautiful. What books do you need to read by the end of the year is question number 13. And again, I'm a mood reader. There aren't any books that I need to read by the end of the year. I don't set the challenges or the goals or my stats or anything like that. I keep track of what I've read through the year, but it's not for numbers and it's not for stats. It's just because it's fun to see what I've read. So as far as what do I need to read or want to read by the end of the year, I guess it would have to go back to, I said earlier, I'd like to finish the Joanna Brady mystery series so that by the time the latest book in the series comes out, I will be ready for it. But if I don't get there, it's no biggie. So anyway, this has just been a lot of fun, and I thank all the booktubers that have inspired me to do this little tribute, and maybe I'll pop on later. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.